Welcome to our July session of Tea Time with Kids Regio. It's getting warm outside, but we're still here with our teacups. But for me, the choice beverage today is iced tea and not hot tea. But who's we today? I am very happy to welcome this month a guest from far up north. I have with me today Laufey Godjonsdottir. I hope I pronounced that right. Yes, the director of the Icelandic Film Fund. Hello, Laufey.
Hello. Nice to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining. And I must confess, my knowledge about Iceland is very, very limited. So I'm very much looking forward to our next couple of minutes together and for you to tell me more about your beautiful country. So let's kick it right off and let's start with our traditional first question. What are you drinking and what does your cup look like?
Oh, yes. I'm drinking, actually, to honor the session, I'm drinking tea. Although this is really a coffee country, Iceland. It's all about coffee. But this is a cup that was actually, it's made by an artist, quite a well-known Icelandic visual artist. It's based on a cartoon that he designed together with a well-known writer, Sjón. It was first published in the 90s in a magazine, and then it became more of a independent visual artwork. So this is the lighter side, and then we have a darker side. I prefer this one. So it's the positive on the dualytics.
And this is the side that you're showing us today. So
absolutely, I'll try and do my best.
Very good. Thank you for the first introduction into Icelandic culture already with your cup. And let's go on with the question about the general atmosphere in Iceland, cultural atmosphere. What does film culture look like in Iceland?
I think the film culture in Iceland is very much on the upwards, on a very positive move. It's been it's a rather small film country, or both a small country, but also a rather relatively new film country, because we have the film fund only established in the 1980s, and so the growth was quite fast. And I think per every decade, it's been growing and adding value and quality. So I think we're in a very good place now, despite the odds of a small community, extremely small market, very small language group. We speak our own language. So there are some traps that we have to find a good way around, and I think it's been successful in telling our stories, I think.
I would absolutely agree with you on that. A lot of good cultural exports from Iceland, and looking especially at the production landscape in Iceland, and looking more especially even on young audience content. What is happening in Iceland? Do you have a lot of children's film production, young audience content, or not at all?
We have quite a lot, not enough, I think. I think it's really important to, both culturally, to reflect our own society, our language, our own heritage in the broadest sense of that word. I think it's really, and also this is the future audience. And they are picky, they are very picky. They are used to high budget films and cartoons and whatever from everywhere, but I think we really have to be careful and nurture this culture and do our best every time. So we have been growing, I would say, slowly but surely, but it takes time, and we would very much like to nurture those who are writing for children and directing. We would like to do better to encourage them.
So are there any initiatives, any special funding schemes that are directed towards young audience content creators at your fund, or maybe also from the government?
Well, this fund is government funded by the government, but we don't have a special section for children, but it's definitely in our guidelines to prioritize children's and youth. And we really and we really do in our daily job. We also try to give them a bit extra, a bit more money, because it takes more, especially for live action with children. You need more time with them. You need different kind of resources, and we are definitely trying to increase the level. We have, for the past, we have, during many years we've had a lot of workshops. We have, for example, very often someone coming from abroad, renowned scriptwriter, for example, working with a group of writers. But also in the past few years, it's been quite successful, more of a peer style workshops organized by the Association of Film Directors. And they have, we have now funded them with a series of workshops that have actually proved really good. Maybe a group of 6 or 8 individuals with each with their own script, and the coordinator is always one of the film directors or script writers who puts in a bit extra work, and then I think it's been really a fruitful series of seminars and workshops. But we want to expand now, and we're aiming at something in the autumn. And now, since we have a new film policy and strategy for the next 10 years, we also think there's a way for us to finance and participate in bigger and more schemes.
We're talking about this very interesting 10-year strategy later, a bit more also when we talk about film education. But coming back to, and you already talked a bit about that, about development programs. You already said, even though your country is very small and literally it's an island, you still have initiatives aimed at the creators. But I know also that you look also to other countries to get their knowledge and send your creatives there to learn. With whom are you cooperating, and how does that work?
Definitely. I mean, we've now for a few years we've been working with Cine
Kids in Amsterdam.
Yes,
probably?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So we have had more or less one slot there with an Icelandic project. And of course, with any development in script or in any creative work, I mean, there's a long time that goes without anything being visible. But I definitely think this is a very good investment, because even though those projects that participate are not the ones maybe that are actually going into production now, I think there's something else happening, and also strengthening the community, definitely, because, so I mean, it takes time. But we've also had some projects that were developed with Cine that actually have been on the screen. For sure. We would also like to now, with the new strategy, 10-year strategy, to build on more of a film literacy for children and youth, even grown-ups, for that sake. But now we're aiming at the children's, both teaching them on Icelandic films and more generally. We are translating, we're picking up a lot of materials we have from especially the Nordic countries that have actually been working with Icelandic films as well in their educational schemes. So they've been very supportive. We are also looking at Denmark very much, and they have kindly offered us a lot of help to initiate these projects. Besides this, I think it's very important to have some kind of a workshop or small film labs for kids where they can actually try out, for trial and errors, and maybe to be visited there by film professionals. We need more role models. We need more women role models, and we have to work with teachers. We have to get this idea of film literacy more of a mainstream in the educational system, and I think definitely there's a political will for that.
Okay, so even though we wanted to talk about that later, you now already talked so much about film literacy, no problem at all. So maybe we just stay there. We just talk a bit more about this 10-year strategy.
Everything touches it now.
No, but really everyone is now very excited to hear about that, I think, because a 10-year strategy is a long strategy, and you said also the government stands behind that. So Where did that come from? What does that look like? What are your plans? What's going on in Iceland?
Well, it's a small country, small community. So in a way, we've only had very few pillars of what we would say a natural, healthy film environment. I mean, we've had the film fund for productions. We have had some film education, film theory at the University of Iceland, and we've had a film school that is kind of a practical education, 2 years practical education, and doing quite well. And now there's a part of the strategy is to increase the education and add film education at the Academy of the Arts. It's on the agenda, but it's not been financed yet. But we hope it might happen in maybe 1 or 2 years' time. So we will have our own film department. I think until now it's been quite important factor also that film professionals have got their education abroad and moved back. But it's also very important for the film environment to have something here, both to give back and for their own, just the strengthening the whole environment. So this is the education that is really the first time that we have anything on paper on that. Also the film literacy for children that I mentioned. Then we have also a strategy to make Icelandic films more accessible by on streaming platforms, either as a findability or simply having them available. That's also quite an important issue now because we all know what happened to the DVDs. Also to build up a more family-oriented or family-friendly work environment for the film professionals. Obviously the green and environmental issues that we're also working on. It's kind of, it takes some time, but we're actually working on the first steps. Then we are also supporting more festivals with more money for more variety of activities than before, which also enriches the film culture and the whole environment. Also to give better support to promotion of Icelandic films that reach into the major film festivals or the major international markets. And then it's the ever-growing gender issue that we are constantly working on.
So you're doing an all-around strategy. You're touching everything that there is
to
touch.
Yes. I mean, it's really interesting. It's a lot of work, and I think it's the most pleasant work. I think, especially towards the youth, because it's so important. And I think there's so much that we can do, and not everything. Yes, most projects cost a little bit of money, but not all of them are very expensive. So sometimes it's just a question of a bit of a push and get things together. But there are always some. You can always find many ways to do things better than before.
And learn from each other. But what I would find very interesting to know is you also said that obviously sustainable filming, green filming, and the gender issues, diversity are also top priorities in the strategy. But you also have this focus on children and young audience. How did you do that? Because in a lot of countries, those trend topics, gender and green they're omnipresent everywhere. But children and the young audience are so often that just nobody thinks about them. Where did that come from in your country? Where did the initiative come from?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm one of those who have been preaching it for a long time. And we had 8 or 9 years ago, we had a cultural minister who actually put it on the agenda, and we were kind of working on it already then, but then a new government came with new emphasis, so it was kind of in the drawer all these years, but actively thinking about it and trying to map. And that's also what we want to do, is to gather all information, whatever is done in various schools around the country, so that we have some kind of information bank as well for professionals and teachers to look into. So we're going to make a special place on our web for that, be a kind of a center on children's issues, whoever is working on it, at the time. But then I think it's also, we have with the Art House Cinema, that is actually owned and run by the associations of filmmakers. They have also had this like Children's Film Festival that also gives more opportunities and wakes more people up and makes them more awareness about the importance. I think as most of us who work in this field know, that the film language is so strong, and it's obviously the dominant medium in the world now. I mean, not maybe 10 years ago we would read recipes, now now it's all YouTube or whatever. So it touches every field of the society. So for children being able to analyze and understand the even though it's a boring word, but to say the grammar of the language, film language, is really essential.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. And as I think as in every country, also with your country, you need the right people over a long period of time that are very persistent and raising the topic over and over again. And then,
yes, never give up. Always find a new way to preach.
That's what we can say about this. So we already touched a lot of topics on the surface. For instance, you mentioned very briefly online offers, platforms, and that would lead me to the question: what kind of online offers are there, and do you have national TV broadcast that has a children's program? So where can the children watch audiovisual content if they're not going to the cinema?
Well, the national TV has always had some children's content, but maybe more kind of TV style production wise, more kind of short term, but absolutely successful shows that have been running for decades even. There are two other local channels that also have had some children's, but not really that much anymore. And then these three channels, the TV channels, they all have their own platforms for, I mean, the national TV has their own catch-up and iPlayer, and then the others have some kind of a streaming VOD service. And then Netflix is very widespread here in Iceland. Viaplay from the Nordic countries, Disney Plus, I mean, more and more, but we don't have, probably because it's such a small market, we don't have all the players in the country, but there's definitely more than any healthy child can consume that is available.
And are the offers in Icelandic, or is that because it's such a small country, nobody is dubbing in your own language?
Yeah, the local channels do most of the time, rather than subtitling. It depends on the age of the children. But then Netflix doesn't. But Disney has, for example, always they kind of own their own dubs, or the dubs to their films. So but still, when they first started their service here, it was all in English. But our Minister of Education and Culture wrote them a letter and asked them, please use your Icelandic dubs, and they actually listened. So we have now more in Icelandic on the Disney.
I mean, especially for the younger children, are they already able to understand English? The 5-year-olds?
No, I think, I mean, it's no, of course not. I mean, they I mean, they don't really start learning English until maybe 9 or 10 years old, but of course English is quite everywhere. I mean, more here in Iceland because we don't have the dubbing tradition as you have in Germany, for example. It's similar to what we have in the other Nordic language. It's mostly subtitled, except for the young children. So there's very much English heard, you know, everywhere, more or less.
But that's so cool that your minister writes to Disney, please use your Icelandic dubbed versions.
It is. It is.
So apparently that's an important topic to the Ministry of Education and Culture as well. So that's good to hear. I would wish for every Ministry of Culture and Education in Europe to have the same view on this topic. That would be nice. You already said a very little bit about festivals and general industry events. So what is there in Iceland? Are there festivals specifically dedicated to the young audience or more young audience sections? What do you have on your island?
We have this, I mean, we at the Icelandic Film Centre, we have been collaborating with the European Film Academy on Young Audience Award now for a few years. That has been successful, but it, you know, like any other projects of this kind, you know, it takes time to build it up. But then there's a specific children's film festival run by the Bíóparadís, which is the art house cinema here in Iceland, owned by the associations of filmmakers. And they have both films and also some side programs for kids. It's been very popular and increasingly so. They also have some programs for schools, you know, so they aim at teachers who bring classes to the films, and which is great. Then there are also the established film festival, Reykjavik International Film Festival, RIF. They also have a children's section and workshops for children. For example, specifically for girls, teach them the basics of filmmaking and you know, various programs, side programs. These are the most kind of prominent programs, but then I think it's an increasing awareness of the children's, you know, that we have to think of them all of the time. But this is kind of the main thing in the films.
I mean,
sector.
For a country of how many people are living in Iceland?
About 350,000.
I would say for a country of 350,000, that's quite a good offer. So you mentioned, I think already twice or even 3 times, this one cinema that the Bíóparadís, I think it was called. So is that the only cinema in Iceland? Are there more?
No,
I can't imagine how that works in such a small country.
No, this is the only art house cinema. The only and the first one, established in 2010. But there have been, before that, there were some film clubs and some film societies, but this is the only cinema emphasizing on art house films, and it's a non-commercial business they run, and they are part of Europa Cinema and many other projects. And we have then there are commercial cinemas chains, you know, that have, you know, where the main business is, and you know, they have contracts with, you know, Disney, Warner, you know, whatever, the American majors. And but I think through history, it's been Iceland has been quite a big cinema nation. Cinema going is very popular. It's been going down, but I think we're still very high in Europe per capita.
It's interesting how different that is between the different countries. So is it very dark in Iceland during winter? So people go to the cinema very early because you have the cinema atmosphere because it's so dark, or where do you have any idea where that comes from? That people are going to the cinema so much in comparison to other countries?
I'm not sure. It's darkness probably has something to do with it because there's less cinema going in the summer when it's light, 24 hours light, daylight. But I think it's also it's a social platform as well. You know, it's very much youth and young audiences. They meet. It's, you know, you go with your new girlfriend, boyfriend. You know. I mean, it's always been a social meeting place as well, with the popcorn and soda in the. And there's even an intermission very often, which is which makes it quite popular for the youth to meet, you know.
It's also good for every cinema operator that listens to us. Make it a social experience. Do an intermission in between, so the young people come there as a social meeting point. Maybe
Yes,
that's probably the future of cinema, offering really the social experience and not just sitting down, watching, and going home again. But
yes, yeah, probably.
making a whole experience out of it. Okay, I think we only have one question left on our list of questions, and that is the question about research. And usually I get the answer, we don't have that in our country. Any research in Iceland about young audience related topics, about production, film education, whatever?
Actually, now we have also, it's a part of the strategy, the 10-year strategy, is to gather more information and statistics. And we have finally in place, it's probably going to be announced today or tomorrow even, there's a collaboration between some of the ministries and a university department, one of the universities here in Iceland, that will run it. So they will have a research center, which is for creative industries, but obviously films is taking a lot of space within that sector. So finally we will have, I think and hope, a good grounds for both collecting the data and working with the data. Because we have, until now, we've mostly had the National Bureau of Statistics, which is very, I would say, very classic in their work in terms of the classic industries. And so it's more about there. It's more counting of fisheries and agriculture and hydro and aluminium factories rather than the creative sector. But it's getting better, slowly but surely.
But that's good. So now we just have to implement a whole section on children's film within this research center that is built up, and then our job is done.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. So maybe for the next Kids Regio Forum in 2024, you can already be there and tell us about all the nice things that have happened and how this research center was implemented with young audience content topics as well.
I hope it will be. Yeah, I hope it will happen, and with a lot of success stories. But let's see how it goes. Crossing fingers.
Crossing fingers, all the fingers crossed in all of Europe for the future of Icelandic young audience content. Thank you so much that you have been here with me talking about Iceland today, Laufey. And I wish you a great summer, because we're going into summer break now.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been very nice.
Bye-bye.
Talking to you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for joining the conversation with Laufey and me. We hope these 30 minutes gave you a good picture of what's going on in Iceland. Next month, on the fourth Thursday, which is August 26th, I am welcoming Sanja Jovanovic, Program Policy Manager at the Film Centre of Montenegro. We are looking forward for you to join us as usual at 3 p.m. Central European Time for the premiere on YouTube, and any time after that to rewatch as often as you like. See you soon.